Hello, I'm Anthony. Today I'm going to give you a demonstration of how to use ChatGPT to help you write the lyrics for your song. Now this video is going to be in two parts. In part one, I'm going to show you the practical demonstration. Basically, we're going to dive into it as quickly as possible. Once we finish with that demonstration, I'm going to have a talk about some of the moral and ethical implications of this stuff, because we're at a crossroads here. As you're going to see today, AI is now at a stage where it can start doing a lot of the artistic heavy lifting for us. We need to find a way to coexist with that reality. That's an entirely separate thing. We'll deal with that later. But first, here's the practical demonstration. I'm going to show you a real world actual conversation that I had with ChatGPT about this piece of music that I'm in the process of writing. Now, I write lyrics, music first. I'm going to play you a short excerpt of this song that we're going to be talking about today. What you can see on screen here is verse 1. The reason why this is important is, as you're going to see very shortly, the syllabic structure is an important part of how I go about this process. So each note that you're about to hear played by the piano in this part is going to have words substituted into it. So I'm counting the number of syllables in each of these phrases. And I've also got some idea of which words are going to be single syllable and which can be multisyllabic. Okay, so that's verse 1 we've just covered there. Let's have a look at how this conversation with ChatGPT started. So here's the start of that conversation, and as you can see, you don't need to be polite to ChatGPT. You can just give it instructions absolutely plainly. You're going to help me to write a song. I'm going to give you instructions on how the lyrics will be written, and you will confirm your understanding of my instructions as they are given. This helps you to overcome, ChatGPT does have, we can call them bugs if we want, but basically kind of logical flaws where it gets things wrong. It's important to have ChatGPT tell you back the instructions that you've just provided it, so that you understand that the instruction has been input correctly. I'm telling it to don't generate any lyrics until I tell you to. We're going to write one line at a time, and we'll refine each line until I decide to move on to the next one. Do you understand? So I'm being very clear exactly what we're going to be doing here. So at the moment, I'm just laying the groundwork. I'm defining the parameters under which ChatGPT is going to interact with me. Here's its response. Yes, I understand. We'll write one line at a time, and we'll refine each line until you're satisfied. Before moving on, I won't generate any lyrics until you tell me to. That's actually not correct. You'll see later, it does kind of start generating lyrics itself. I'm ready whenever you are. So here I'm defining the scene. The song's mood is gentle and introspective. The subject matter involves a couple holding hands, walking along the beach under a starry, moonlit sky. Every time I say something like this to ChatGPT, I am interacting with it artistically. That in turn is going to impact the output that I get from the engine. So don't underestimate the significance of your input at this stage, and the exact nature of the way that you interact with this engine is going to produce a unique result depending on the instructions that you give. After the confirmation response, I'm now getting into the nitty-gritty of defining the song itself. So I say, now let's start with verse 1, and you can see that I'm interacting with it quite conversationally, just as if I would talk to a human being. The only real difference is that I don't feel the need to be polite, and I'm being as clear and precise as possible in the instructions that I'm providing. It contains exactly 7 syllables and starts with the words in the. That's really pretty vague, but that's what I gave it. Now, I tend to find that sometimes ChatGPT spontaneously goes further than I've asked it to in the instructions. Remember, I told it not to generate any lyrics until specifically instructed to. Depending on the specific nature of your conversation, it might basically just override that. I don't particularly worry about it, but I do specifically say generate it to give it that instruction to actually do the job. So here we are, the first actual output. Here's a possible first line for verse 1, following your instructions in the soft light of the moon. So I'm doing a syllable check to make sure it's got it right. In the soft light of the moon. 7 syllables, very good. And I like it. I think right out of the box, I'm perfectly happy with that. I don't feel any need to edit it. Now I'm going to make probably the most important observation that I'll make in this video. I am not beholden to ChatGPT to write a song that uses the lyrics that it outputs. These are just suggestions. As you're going to see in this demonstration today, I don't particularly care about the specific individual words that ChatGPT outputs because I'm looking for inspiration. Once we finish this process at the end of today's demonstration, ChatGPT will have output 2 verses and 1 chorus. I'm then going to take that information, those lyrics, and evolve them to a point where I'm actually happy to put them in my song. That's an entirely separate second process. But in actual fact, the output from this line 1, verse 1 is one of the better outputs that ChatGPT does during this conversation. So that's pretty much almost guaranteed to make its way through to the final song exactly as is. So I say so. I'm happy with that. Every form of interaction that you have with ChatGPT informs its subsequent output. If you specifically say, I like this, then ChatGPT will kind of cluster around whatever it's done to produce that output. It's going to hang around in that same creative space. Now let's write line 2. The line has 8 syllables and starts with the words where the, generate it, where the stars whisper to waves. Okay, well that's a complete dud. That's a terrible line. It's also got the syllable count wrong. There's only 7 syllables in that line, but it sucks so bad I don't particularly care about the technical error. I don't want it to use that line at all. So now I'm going to start some manual adjustment. I provide the instruction, start line 2 with where the whispers. So now I get the response, where the whispers kiss the waves. Again, that's a 7-syllable line, so it hasn't actually met my requirements. And generally speaking, I do find that ChatGPT is pretty bad at counting syllables. But that's okay, because I only want ballpark approximations of lyrics. Once again, I'm going to edit this stuff myself later. I actually like the sentiment. I do have a token effort, how many syllables are in that line. And here's ChatGPT confirming that it has no real understanding of what a syllable is. Unless I am fundamentally mistaken, I'm pretty sure that line has 7 syllables. Anyway, let's move on. Because in the meantime, I'm going to manually override ChatGPT. In the process of reading that line, I've now amended it, and I prefer the line and the whispered kiss of evening. So I'm now manually substituting that line into the song. And there are the 2 lines repeated back to me. Everything's going well so far. Okay, I say, on to line 3. It has 8 syllables. Introduce the couple in this line. I'm the shepherd here. I'm guiding ChatGPT to do the thing that I want it to do. Generate the line now. 2 hearts walk close, their hands entwined. It's an okay line of poetry. It actually doesn't fit the song though. Let me demonstrate what I mean. 2 hearts walk close is the phrase that we're listening to. So that would be 2 hearts walk close there. It's not right at all. But the phrase pops into my head, hand in hand. That's going to sound better at the beginning. Hand in hand is going to work perfectly well as the first 3 syllables of that phrase. So that's exactly the instruction I provide. Start the line with hand in hand. So hand in hand, their hearts entwined is meeting the requirement. The rest of the sentence has just been tagged on at the end. Again, with the 7-syllable thing, I've kind of given up fighting that fight at the moment. Now, this next instruction from me might seem a little bit unusual because I'm giving a demonstration of how to use ChatGPT to write lyrics, but I've just overwritten the entire line because I've now said change line 3 to with the sand beneath our feet. That's actually got nothing to do with what was written previously. I do not care. That line popped into my head. I prefer it to the one that we'd evolved together up to that point. In many ways, you can think about it as sort of sparring. You've got this sparring partner. If I don't have a human being in the room with me, I'm really using ChatGPT in the same form. It came out with a line. I came out with one that I preferred. Of course, I'm the human, so I win. So I just basically overwrote line 3, and then we're going to move on to the next instruction. Line 4 must contain 7 separate words, all 1 syllable long. This is because of the structure that I know that I have in the background. There's quite a snappy cadence to that last phrase, so I wanted to retain those individual syllables. The last word has to rhyme with moon. It must refer to the action of walking along the beach. Generate it now. There's a lot of instructional information in these commands. I'm trying to interact in a very real way with this AI engine, and the more tightly confined or constrained those instructions are, the more you're going to feel like you're involved in the conversation. Now, ChatGPT lays an absolute egg. We walk slow and hum a tune. It's probably its lowest point in the entire conversation. It fits the structure and meaning, but good God, it's bad. So let's guide it. Let's tell it that that was bad. And not just say that's bad. I'm specifically telling it why. Too prosaic. Make it about their emotions, not their actions. So in addition to it being a criticism, I'm now guiding it to try something else instead. So its reply, here's a more emotionally focused version of line 4. Well, let me be the judge of that. Each soft step in perfect tune. You know what? Okay. I'm going to overlook the fact that you've given me a 2-syllable word there. It feels very much like being a parent. I have two grown-up children. One of the things I always thought important when teaching my children a new thing, whatever it might be, is don't focus on the minutiae. They might get the little things wrong, but if they get the important things right, give them praise for what they've done well. Don't constantly nitpick on all of the trivial stuff. ChatGPT has actually output a perfectly decent lyric there. It's got the syllable count wrong, but it's stuck 2 of them together. I'm going to overlook it because I actually like the line. So in this case, let's let it slide. The important thing is that we have a working lyric. So now I give the instruction, output the whole verse. I just want to read it back. And in doing so, there are a couple of things that I noticed that I thought I didn't particularly like. To be absolutely honest with you, I could have stopped there because it's done its job at this point. I don't really need to fine tune it any further. But as you can see, I'm changing the word and to here, and I'm changing this clunky soft step, kind of hard alliteration. It doesn't sing particularly well. I've changed that to another phrase that subsequently I'm not a particularly big fan of, but nevertheless, here we are with verse 1, pretty much complete. Okay, now on to the chorus. The first line contains 5 syllables and must refer to starlight. Generate it now. It comes out with in the glow of stars. That's okay, happy with that. A new instruction for it. From now on, I will use the word go as instruction to produce lyrics. I strongly suspect it would have generated lyrics anyway, but I'm providing a specific instruction. Change line 1 of the chorus to will this glow of ours, then create line 2 using 7 syllables and ending with the word stars. Go. Will this glow of ours ever fade beneath the stars? To which I respond, change line 2 to ever circle the stars. So you can see I'm kind of feeding off ChatGPT, and the reason I'm providing these feedback instructions is this is all information. All of this is going into the engine. So everything affects everything. Line 3 must contain 8 syllables and start with will the shadow go. Will the shadow dim our light? Well, that line has 7 syllables, but rather than tell it it's wrong, I've just added the word or to the line, which actually makes the line better anyway. And then the line on this shore of ours pops into my head, so I basically feed that in, don't need it to generate line 4. And similarly line 5, which I've subsequently decided is a terrible line, but for now that's what we've got, where we hide for long hours. So this is the next meaningful interaction we have. Line 6, it contains 7 syllables, must end with a worm that rhymes with light. Go. Chasing dreams into the night. I like that one. And there you can see the full chorus. That is way better than a normal page 1 of my lyrics would be. I make a very slight cadence edit to line 6 because it doesn't sing well in the context of the song, but we don't care about that. Chasing dreams in the night. Now the big one. Now for verse 2. Use exactly the same rhythmic structure as verse 1, but change the theme of the verse to describe the couple swimming in the ocean. So now I'm giving ChatGPT full reign. I'm actually going to let it generate the entire verse. I'm overriding my previous instruction where we were generating 1 line at a time. How's it going to get on generating 4 lines of verse in one go? Up until this point, everything that's happened in this conversation is valuable input. Every single interaction that's passed between me and ChatGPT has got us to this stage where I've basically honed it to the point where it's generating lyrics that I'm happy with. Let's see how it does. In the waves that softly roll, hear the ocean's song of peace. With the tide, our hearts will flow. Lost in love, we find release. I'm almost tempted to say no notes. I'm going to come back the following day. As I do, you'll see shortly some of the edits that I've made to this. But for the purpose of the conversation we're having on this day, that's pretty much all I'm asking for. It's nailed the brief. Having slept on that conversation, I wake up the following morning and carry on. Every conversation that you have with ChatGPT is remembered, so you can just start typing again the following day and it will pick up as if there'd been no break. So the following day I type, I don't like the third line of the chorus. Give me 5 alternatives, all with identical meter. Make reference to the idea of capturing the stars in each of the new lines. So here are the 5 alternatives. I read them all, don't like any of them. So I'm going to need to refine my instruction. Try again, but this time make the theme holding something in our hands and make the last word rhyme with night. This is me identifying a flaw in my previous instructions because I wanted a particular rhyming structure that I'd forgotten to be specifically instructional on. And so I'm fixing that mistake and making sure that we get our rhyming pattern back. Here are the new alternatives, and it turns out that option 5, or hold their fire within our sight, is my preferred of them. So I ask it to insert that line into the chorus and then repeat the whole thing back to me. And there's the new line 3 embedded in the chorus. At this point, my conversation with ChatGPT is pretty much done. And by way of illustration of the fact that those lyrics aren't going to make their way into the final song, here's my first page of edits to that song. You can see verse 1 I'm actually pretty happy with. And at the moment, I haven't changed very much at all. But the chorus and verse 2 have been absolutely butchered by me subsequently. The fact is I'm up and running. I'm now at the point where it might have taken me 2 or 3 hours of lyric writing to get to this stage. I can then pick that up and start really tailoring it to my own specific requirements, singing it in the context of the song and making sure it really says exactly what I want it to say. So we need to ask ourselves, is this something that we want to do? Well, the answer really, I think, is twofold. Firstly, from the creative perspective, which aspect of writing lyrics do you enjoy? Well, I don't like that beginning slog. The blank page syndrome is grim to me and is a huge disincentive for writing music. I'll go quite long periods of time writing instrumental after instrumental just to avoid the pain of having to write lyrics. I find it the most difficult part of the songwriting process. Now, those seed ideas, I came up right at the very beginning of the song. I painted that image and gave that instruction to ChatGPT. That's pretty easy. I can do that relatively quickly. But the legwork of getting those first few lines down is really, really difficult. And that's where ChatGPT shines. With a few nudges from me, that entire conversation probably took place in terms of actual physical typing, maybe half an hour to an hour, where we've got 2 verses and 1 chorus of eminently usable lyrics. There's really nothing fundamentally wrong with them. They're a bit cheesy. Some of the lyrics don't sing particularly well. We're going to fix that later. But getting to this stage is really difficult and grindy for me. I don't enjoy it. If you do, you don't need to do this. That's absolutely fine. So from a practical perspective, absolutely, I'm going to use this tool because it makes the songwriting process more fun for me. Now, if ChatGPT was doing the entire job and I had no interaction or input to it at all, that would be utterly pointless. What the hell are you doing that for? At that point, you're not writing the song. But I feel sufficiently engaged in this process to not suffer from that downside at all. I don't feel like I'm detached here or hanging off ChatGPT's coattails. I've found this creative comfort level for me, this balance between AI and my own imagination, that I'm comfortable with. I don't see any point in denying that this technology exists. And if you can use it to have more fun in the creative endeavours in which you engage, then surely that's only a good thing. Now, this ties into part 2. I said there were really 2 limbs that we have to talk about here. The moral and ethical considerations are something entirely apart. You can see in that entire conversation, I never referred to a specific artist or a specific song. I have asked ChatGPT specific questions about specific songs, and it's given me very detailed responses which indicate that it very clearly has analysed that particular song. That whole intellectual property quagmire is something that I just don't want any part of. And so I will never ask ChatGPT to emulate a specific song or a specific artist. With that caveat said, however, we're there. As a proof of concept, this conversation that I've just relayed to you in its entirety, I didn't delete or edit any part of that conversation. That's exactly what happened in the context of this song that I'm writing right now. I think all of that is an absolute demonstration that we are there. AI is now capable of doing all of this stuff for us. At this point, we just need to figure out a way to sit comfortably with it. I think we're going to spend the next few years figuring out how to live side by side with AI. And in the course of doing so, we're basically going to redefine what it is to be artistic. Hope you enjoyed the video today. Please hit like if you did. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. There are Patreon and channel member links if you'd like to help support me further. Thanks very much. I'll see you next time.